I've got to be honest, prepping for this talk with you guys today has been really difficult. Jesus has spent a lot of time making me sit in some very uncomfortable moments as a reminder of the discomfort that he faced in that last week, knowing what was to come and knowing that no one could fully understand what he was going through, that his disciples even were not able to do something as simple as stay awake and support him while he prayed, to know that they would betray him, to know that no matter how hard things were going to get for him, that he needed to stick it out in order to save us. And how hard that sacrifice must have been, knowing that he was fully God and at any time he could make it stop. I know for me, the uncomfortable moments have looked a lot like mourning a divorce as a Christian, mourning the loss of a parent, mourning the loss of a child, having to work through being falsely accused of things, being gossiped about, having to work through people lying to you, the pains that come with having loved ones that struggle with addiction, and knowing there's nothing that you can do other than pray to help them. We all have a lot of loss and a lot of pain in our lives that looks different for each of us, and we deal with it in different ways. But I'm guessing most of it is dealt with not how Jesus dealt with things, by confronting them head on and walking through them, but by finding ways to make the pain stop, to not have to think about the overwhelming circumstances, not having to deal with the hard emotions that really get us down and make us feel like we are utterly alone. I don't know if any of you have experienced feeling like you cry out to God and God is not there, like the ground has just fallen apart from beneath you, like there's no hope. I can tell you that I have, on more times than I would like to admit. But in those moments when we can't feel him, but we can trust in his word that he is there, our relationship with God grows. He takes that mess and makes something incredibly beautiful out of it. And that's exactly what he did with Jesus on the cross. As you just heard in the story that I read, Jesus cries out to God before he finally surrenders and dies. And he cries out to him and says, "Why have you forsaken me?" And we all know that God is with us even when we can't feel him. And we know that God never truly left Jesus. They were always one. But we know that in that moment it felt like it. We know that in that moment there was that desperation, that need to feel that someone would pick him up and take him out of that situation, to walk beside him so that he wouldn't have to face it alone. And I think that we need that reminder that we are all going to struggle, we are all going to go through hard things, but we can trust in God's goodness. And on that cross, he wasn't just dealing with a hard thing. He was dealing with the pain of betrayal and loneliness and torment, but also the weight of our sin. And I don't think we take time enough to think about the weight that is created by our sin. We may be forgiven in Jesus, but there is a weight that needed to be paid for. And he paid that. He felt all of that at once and was overwhelmed. And still, he cried out to God. Still, he forgave those standing next to him. Still, he was concerned about the people he loved being cared for. And I think we need to learn from that example. We need to find a way to sit in the pain when it comes and trust that that pain may be big, but God is bigger, and that He is going to do an incredible amount of good with all the things that we bring to Him. If you're anything like me, you're going to avoid that pain. I know this week it's taken a lot of 2 a.m. wake-ups for Jesus to get my attention to sit through some of the hard things that I had already mostly healed from, and to re-examine them and to look back and see what He had brought me through and what He's done for me since then. It's hard to not get distracted by Facebook, by our kids, by our friends, by television, really anything, even good things like work or, gardening or helping a loved one. But it's important for us to take the time today to remember that His struggle was for all of mankind. And it may be easier to skip to Sunday, where we get to rejoice that He was no longer in the grave, but without remembering the pain that it took to get Him there, we sell that short. We need to remember that this was hell for Him, to be despised and rejected and beaten and tormented and mocked, spit on, to feel like He had lost everything. And yet something beautiful came out of it. But the pain had to come first. So I hope you take some time tonight, even tomorrow, to reflect on the things in your life that have been difficult, that God has brought you through, the ways He has loved you in the midst of your pain, in the midst of your suffering, the ways He has brought you joy and peace, shown you that you are loved, and that you would be ready after walking through the sadness to rejoice with Him on Sunday. Have a great weekend, and we will see you soon.